my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps. I'm your host, Ike, and before I talk anymore, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It does mean a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if after all this you have the wherewithal, it'd be really cool if you share this with someone who you think would like it, or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That'd be dope. So, I probably sound really tired, and it's because I am. I just got back from the World Championships of Magic, where I did nearly as bad as you possibly can, which sucked. But it was still a lot of fun, or the experience of going, playing, and seeing all those people and interacting was a lot of fun. Learned some valuable lessons, life-wise, and also competition-wise for next time, which I hope there is. I mean, obviously know how I got there the first time, so in theory, I can do it again, assuming everything breaks my way. Hopefully I'll remember next time. I had a really good time traveling over. While I didn't do well, it's the journey or whatever, right? So traveled over with my great friends Aaron Barrich, Kyler Martin, and Daniel Silver, who've all been on the podcast because they're awesome and were worth interviewing. If you haven't checked out the episodes, I'd really recommend it. They are fantastic. But traveling over and traveling back was a lot of fun. They were great road mates, and we had a ball. Yeah, I'm still a little disheartened about not doing well, and I'm a lot tired. And one of the lessons is fucking sleep and, value, invest in yourself, I guess. One of the things I didn't do is I didn't push my objective too much. I kind of just let things happen on the trip, sleeping wise and such. I tried to make some of it, and some of it is I need to figure out how to go to sleep under certain circumstances better and sleep longer. And maybe that's seeing a doctor or something. Aaron thinks I might have sleep apnea or something like that, but I hope not. If I do, I do, and I'll get that taken care of. But I think what it might be is instead of staying at my good friend JPEG's place for free, it might be paying for a hotel room for 3 days. Because I spent so much time preparing for this to have, a mediocre bed that was free stand in the way of success that I want so badly for money when magic in itself is kind of flying in the face of financial, intelligence, basically. It's kind of foolhardy. But, lesson learned. Same with preparation. So there's a bunch of things. And one of the things is, sadly, I might need to leave the testing team I was with. Which is really weird. Because I like hanging out with the guys that I tested with. A lot of them I would say I'm pretty good friends with, or a good handful of them I really enjoyed testing and chatting with. I had a lot of fun. And that does matter. But I don't think I got the intel. I don't think I got the experience I need to succeed in this. And this is a really weird breaking point for me. And this might be what changes me for one way or the other. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. But it's determining which road I want to follow. The road where you hang out with your friends and you play a game and maybe you get there. Or the road where you treat it like a business. Where you treat it like a profession where you put yourself in the best position to win, regardless of whether you necessarily have the best fun time as much as you have the best information time. And I do think there's a cross section. You obviously don't want to be hanging out with assholes where you are succeeding just a little bit better. I'm not that cutthroat, I don't think. Otherwise I would probably be a professional athlete, but I'm not. And I'm completely fine with that. But, there's some self-analyzing that needs to take place. In which way? Got a lot of stuff taken care of this week. Also, before leaving, got an MRI done. Got my oil changed. Although I'm definitely not going back to that oil change place, because when they filled up my tires with air, per my request, they didn't even do it, which would prefer to be automatic. They're like, "What PSI do you want?" Or I think pressure. I think PSI is right. I don't know shit about cars. I was like, I don't know. You guys, the mechanics, look it up. And they're like, all right. And they just guessed. They're like, 37 sounds about right. And I was like, what the fish? So that happened. Um, I got an MRI done. That was less than fun, but hopefully, on the road to fixing my body. I got a new battery. Oh yeah, that was fun. So we drove to Vegas. A light accidentally got left on in my car, causing the battery to drain. Balls. Luckily, JPEG was awake, was able to jump our car. Awesome. Thanks, JPEG. Love you, my boy. Then we drove. We got breakfast. After the breakfast, car would start again. And then my friend Kyler, who is quite the handyman, looked under the hood and was like, "Oh, your battery says it should be like replaced 2 years ago." And I was like, "Screw it. I'm getting a lump of cash. Might as well use it to, take care of something that's going to be taken care of on this trip, so we don't have this happen again." Got that replaced. It was fine. Bookended our trip with going to Raising Cane's. That was awesome. Love that restaurant. And, had some great foods along the way and great times. And while this wasn't a rip-roaring success, in fact, the opposite, the best part of it is I still had fun. And that's really the most important thing. Now, if I can marry that fun with success. Anyway, that difficult bit aside, today's episode is really fantastic. This is a guest that I've been wanting to get on for a long time. This is my boss and great family friend, MIKALA RAHN. We had a lovely time talking. I'm so glad, Michael, if you're listening to this, that you could make time for me and we could find time. You are a very busy and awesome woman, and I'm always in awe of what you're able to do. So thank you very much for making time. And y'all out there, I really hope you do enjoy this interview as much as I did. Take it away past me. All right, folks. Today on the pod, we have a mother of two who breastfed both their children while working a full-time job, was once given the opportunity of being the second wife to a Muslim guru, and somehow got a PhD and 2 master's degrees before their GAD? It's MIKALA RAHN! Woo! How's it going, MIKALA?
It's going. It's good.
All right, before we ask any questions, I gotta know, how does one bypass not having a GAD to get 2 masters and a PhD?
Well,
I thought a GAD was requisite toward going to college.
Yeah, well, I had my diploma, and so I went to college, and then I was like, well, why not have a GED? Because you work with kids that don't, and I didn't really understand if the test was harder than a diploma, so I took the test.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, other than that, what decision in life are you most proud of making?
Well, I started a school. It was not the plan. I never thought in college, oh, you'll have a school. And then in my case, a school for high risk youth. So it just sort of kept going. So in the nonprofit that I started, we were doing, my background's all research. And so we were doing research, and then eventually all these high need kids were coming to me, and I mean gangs, probation, teens with babies, foster care, homeless, drug addiction, and this was way out of my world. And so I did know you could start a charter. Most people don't with this population because they're very difficult to serve, and so eventually I decided, let's do it. And I didn't realize what huge political support I had to do to create a charter school. And charter schools could be really seen as the bad guy because they're taking kids away from districts. But in this case, they weren't in the schools. So I wasn't a bad guy. I was taking money. You were picking up the
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other interesting thing I learned at the beginning was they got credit the district got credit for every dropout I picked up. So it was at 24.6% dropout rate in Pasadena.
Holy
and
cow.
It's now at about 9.2. But that's because something like us exists, so that then we deal with it. So it was a calling and a really good thing to do. It wasn't easy and it hasn't been easy to sustain, but even when I feel like I want to pull my hair out, I'm really, really glad I started that school.
Well, as you, brief denotation for those listening. This is my boss, or my boss's boss, however we want to typify this. So a little bit of personal intel and personal experience. So with that, as I know you are not a fan of particularly rough language, what's your favorite G-rated curse word?
Well, G-rated? I mean, it's a dud is always the word I say, but I mean, I always like it's a dud, and people kind of like they just tune into that and go, okay, that's my G-rated. I tend to share your fuck word. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes,
that's you blurt it out in crowds. I probably randomly say it to people, but it's not a bad word. It's got some power behind it.
It does have some oomph to the woomph. What's the best or most memorable piece of advice you've ever received?
This is a strange one, but it has stuck with me since college. I had this professor that we were doing these cognition labs. My professor didn't like schools. He said there's no way to do any research in schools. They're dysfunctional. They're all over the place. Too many kids, blah, blah, blah. So we were doing cognitive science studies with the Russians, I might add, when I was in college. And I'm 55, so everybody do the math. And that we were doing it in after-school programs because you could do these little small one-on-one experiences. We were looking at the mediation between technology and students and how, they learned as they talked in front of a computer. But I had grown this, like, at my young age of, like, 21, had made, like, a couple really strong cognition labs in the Boys and Girls Clubs. And it was really hard to go. Like, it was like, uh-oh, I'm going to go. And what happens to all this work? And it, kind of was a me in retrospect thinking. But I talked to my professor who had like absolutely no emotional ability to communicate. Like it just was going to come out straight with no tones and no anything. Brilliant man. Dr. Michael Cole. But anyway, he just looked at me and said, when I said, what's going to happen? I just feel so bad leaving. And what if it all crumbles? And he looked right at me and said, you are replaceable. And I stared at him. And I was like, okay. And he said, it may not look the way you did it. It may change. It could fail. It could, we don't know where it'll go, but there will always be someone to step in your shoes in a different way. And I've kept that with me forever. Anytime, like, my head gets too big or, something, I always go back to, you are replaceable.
Well, we talked earlier about how you've created a school and what an awesome accomplishment that is. But on the flip side of that, what would you say is your proudest accomplishment that the fewest people know of?
My proudest moment that few people know about. Accomplishment. Well, I have one that's kind of silly, but I think it means something to me, which is, I didn't grow up with money. I went off to college being a nanny. And couldn't live in the dorms, couldn't do any of that because, I had no money. I was going to pay for it all. So one of my accomplishments at that point or younger age, I always thought, what a great planner she is. Isn't she good at being efficient? And so I have a BA, 2 masters, and a PhD with not one extra credit on my transcript.
Nice.
And that was like intentional.
Fuel efficient.
Get me out of here. So I did my first degree in 4 years, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
at UC San Diego. And then I went off to UC Berkeley. And again, I was like, get out, let's do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
got 2 masters and a PhD in 4 years.
Lean.
Very.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's my, that's my, now it's kind of like ho hum. That sounds exhausting. Like in my life, as your life goes on, you're like,
Yeah.
well, thank God that chapter's over with. Now, when someone asks me what's your greatest accomplishment, I always say the birth of my children and Dominic Corey. And Dominic Corey was, we call them chasers at our school. A chaser's paired to a teacher. A chaser's job is to get students back. They hate school. They hate the system, and so we're getting them. They think they're dumb. Those things. And so the chasers help us get them back into education, into our school, and they come from the same conditions of the kids. Well, all my chasers have been someone that I knew or I helped or went through our school. And long ago when we started, there was a donor called Dick Davis that he was helping a kid that he knew since middle school, and he brought him to me fresh out of jail and said, okay, take care of this guy. He's got to get some skills. And Dominic Corey, I pulled my hair out with this man. He graduated from Youth Authority. He was a gun-carrying high school student. He was a gang member. And, he started the school with me. And he got his degree from Cal State Pomona. And then he ended up just really not having a way to get out into the workplace because his charges were so great, and he did have 2 strikes. And so it was like, how does this brilliant person now go somewhere? And then Assemblyman Anthony Portantino came to me, we're buddies, and he said, look, I really am impressed with Dominic, and if I win senator, I'll hire him. We won't tell him, but I'll hire him. And when he won, he called me 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, and I remember sitting at my kitchen table sobbing, and Dominic Corey, and then I called Dom, and we sobbed, and it was the chance. It is a change of his life. He is a field representative with Senator Anthony Portantino. He's been in that seat now, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I guess Anthony's in his 2nd term. And he is his representative on education, on environment, on the justice system. And it's just
Awesome.
really great to run into him at events, and he's all dressed up. And now he's on Learning Works board, of course, because he did help start the school. So I don't take credit for much. But I do take credit for being in his life, and it's worked out.
Awesome. To rewind the clock a little bit to the beginning of that question, you're talking about how you were very, efficient when it came to selecting your classes, how they were exactly going to fit the perfect criteria. It sounds like in those days you were living and scrimping every penny you had. Did you have what I like to call a poor man luxury? Like a meal that was not particularly expensive, but you just, it was fine dining.
People who have been in jail talk about this a lot. There's the things they can eat and the things they can't eat. Stroganoff's off the list, by the way. When I was luckily I love noodles and I love rice. I don't know what people do if they don't. Because that, you can always whip up some buttered noodles and be fine.
Oh, buttered noodles.
Yeah, and I am a grilled cheese lover, so that's always an easy make. But yeah, there were some days I was like, okay, how's this gonna work out today? And it always did. That's the thing that's always fascinating and a little bit easier with age, is that it really always did.
Rolling the clock even farther back, what's the silliest thing you believed as a child that you look back on and you're just like, little MIKALA, you silly goose?
Oh, I have a great one actually for that. So, I mean, you know, I'm pretty invested in world religion, spirituality, and just being a seeker, whatever that means to everybody, you know, listening. What, you know, how are you a seeker? And yeah, and when I look back, if you're a seeker, you go through different stages, chapters. I've gone through it all, for God's sake. And then I look back and I go, what was my first image of God? And my first image of God, and this is a strange one, he looked exactly like Mac Davis, the singer, playing a guitar with big hair, with people around him. And that's what I pictured. It was like a different, you know, and they're all in white on a cloud. But he is playing his guitar, Mac Davis God, with all the people around him.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't even know where I got Mac Davis, but it was very clear to me that that's who he was.
Bringing up guitars in a weird way that triggers my next question. What's your favorite non-musical sound?
Oh, ocean. Water. Anything water for me is like golden. It's just it just resonates with my body, I guess. And you know, I mean, we're a lot of water, but
we are
a lot of water. But ocean is wonderful. Second place is a running river.
What's your last or most memorable dream that you've had?
I recently have a lot of dreams. Now they're not dark and horrible, but they're incredibly vivid. And you know, some of them are conversations. Like you'll just be like, okay, well, what a great conversation between you and your friend Joe. And so I don't know where that comes from. But there was one that was so weird. My sister has recently moved to LA from Boston, and she's a teacher, and she is strange as hell. I mean, she's just a wackadoo, and in a good way. I mean, you know, she's a literature junkie, so she's an English teacher. She can just pull a rabbit from her hat in any topic. But and her husband is Greek. And he now got a big job as a dean of, I don't know what they call it over there at Claremont colleges, but like political science, government, who knows, big job. Mm-hmm. And, but the Greek part's always been interesting to me because, you know, I went to Greece and their wedding, it literally could have been my Greek wedding. The ways in which they behave are so different than us. And so in one of my dreams, Yanni, who's my brother-in-law, was being, there was a military force trying to kidnap him, and I guess eventually kill him. And I'm running a meeting, and for some reason his desk is in my meeting with all these people. And so all of a sudden they come and they throw him in a car, and I'm like, oh my God, I call my sister, we got a problem here. They've got him. And she shows up, and she is a wackadoo. I mean, really. And she shows up, and they give her a quiz. It was like a cultural quiz on, I guess it was Greek. I think it was made up in my brain. I don't know anything about this. But she had to do all these rituals that they did, and if she did them, she passed, and we were good. And in my dream, I'm like, oh, we're fucked. There's no way this girl has got this down. Mm-hmm. She did everything perfectly. The bows, the song, the sound, it was like she's got it. We are Greek. We are Greek. Anyway, so those are, you know, that there's always some sort of meaning in there. I mean, maybe I underestimate her. I don't know, but it was so clear and not spooky. It was great.
Well, that might have been it, but given the opportunity, what's your favorite story of your own to tell?
Well, story or book or, I mean, I live in stories, by the way, because, you know, all of my students have so many rich stories, and some of them hilarious. And, if you don't, you'll cry if you don't laugh. So you try to find the humor in some really pathetic stories. So I have a bunch of stories on that. You have a bunch of stories on my family. And then I'm a pretty avid reader. So there's, those stories. Which are you interested in?
Whichever one you've experienced that, given the opportunity, is the first, like, you're sitting around a coffee table with friends, you're on a train, you have a moment to fill the void. What story is yours that really you just love to tell? What's the first one that usually comes to mind?
Well, it depends. I got a ton of, a bag of tricks on stories. So, I have the story that I was electrocuted in my shower.
Love it.
That's a wonderful story that is true story. And that story is that I'm renting a little house in Pasadena, and I go to take a shower like normal people. I have been in the shower now. Yeah.
Sorry. Just like normal people.
Like normal people. And I don't know the percentage of people that wear shoes or not in the shower. I would love to know the answer to that. But I, at that point, did not. So I was a shoeless, naked person in the shower.
Just a vagabond.
Yeah. Just, doing what I think normal people do. And I go to adjust the shower. And like I said, I've been in the shower, maybe at this point, 7 months. And I go to adjust the shower, and I feel a little shock. And I'm like, nah. There's no way I felt that. And so I go to grab the shower head to adjust it. And I get jolted, zip, zang, I'm shaking. I get my legs out of the shower before I can release my hand off this damn, knob or whatever. And just lay on the bed oh my God, and so it was scary. I mean, I have no idea. Yeah. So I call the landlord, and I'm like, I just got electrocuted in the shower. She's like, no. I'm like, no, I just got electrocuted.
I checked.
I promise you, I'm still shaking. And so she sends over her not so great handyman as opposed to a specialist. I love this man. Handyman. I love him, and he whistles all the time. But he wouldn't be who you'd call if you were electrocuted. It'd be the piece of wood fell off your door and you needed it nailed to it, Yeah. So anyway, he comes in, and now when I say this story, it sounds so dumb. So he comes over, and he's like, he's Spanish speaking, but he has pretty good English, but he's quiet and just dry. He'll do things like, and she killed you. And then you're just like, what? So he's like, that's how he speaks. And so he says, how? Huh? And I'm like, well, I don't know how. I'm just telling you, usually it's wires. And, so for some reason, not an electrician, the shower, if you're standing in the bathroom, if the shower's on the left, the light switch is on the right. So no connection, right? He changes the light switch, and he changes it out and says, all is well. Now, I'm stupid, so I'm like, wow, okay, you sure? Yes, it's all fixed. And then yet, it's hindsight's great. Why would a light switch help a bathtub area? So the next day, I forget my shoes again. Right now, you should be wearing shoes. Plastic something with rubber. I go into the shower, and I get electrocuted. And this time worse. And and by the way, if you ever get electrocuted and live, it does take a few hours for your body to settle. I mean, it's just really awful. So anyway, this time I'm like, I got electrocuted. This time she sent an electrician, and I love people who love their craft. They got out one of those little, they look like they're looking for kryptonite or something, right? They're like running, and they're like, oh my goodness, your wall is filled with electricity. I'm like, yes, you don't have to tell me. It's now in my body. So they rewired the wire. I guess a wire in an old house can go loose. And
Yeah.
since the light above the sink was connected to this wiring, they
Okay.
undid all the wiring behind and they went over the roof. But true story, now what, 3 or so years later, I do not take a shower in the light. It's always in the dark with my shoes on. I'm not kidding.
Love it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What's your favorite myth that you like to or find yourself most commonly dispelling?
About myself, I mean, I have a
No. Just myth in general.
myth in general.
Like, for instance, one of mine is that Napoleon wasn't short. He was actually above average height. He was 5'9" at the time. Average height was somewhere between 5'6" and 5'8". And the reason we think that is because, and I don't know who this was, but a British artist and writer for a newspaper or a publishing house at the time thought it would inspire British troops and calm the fears of British civilians if they interpret him as being short, because then they would be less afraid of him.
That is fascinating. Wow, and that's very different than someone who says "and the world is round" versus flat. My myths are so serious. Like, I mean, I don't know why. Maybe because I ponder a lot. Like the myth that we live in a democracy. There's so much that people believe that isn't true, that it's almost a sad commentary on who we are as a people. But
Yeah.
you really have to get that. I don't think we do it in the school anymore. And those of you out there that haven't read these little snippets, it's Don't Swallow Your Gumball. It's a book about myths of our physical and mental and wellness. It is a crack up because you know how people. Okay, this is a little raw and maybe a little crash, but let's just go with it. So, like one of the myths of teenagers, because of the work I do, I had a girl who's like 14, 15 come to me and say, and she was a swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, ma'am, I just started my period." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, we can deal with that. There's products for these challenges."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, No, I swim." And I'm still not getting it, right?
Yeah.
I'm still like, huh? And
Okay,
she says, well, I'm not allowed to use tampons. What? I am just like, again, I've had so many awakenings working with people not like me, that have been so useful, fascinating, and sometimes depressing. I said, "What do you mean you're not allowed to use tampons?" Her family and the Catholic Church she's in believes that if you use a tampon, you're no longer a virgin. I mean, like, really? Yeah. So there's still a lot of
men making rules for women.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's still a lot of churches out there that really they condone the idea of using a tampon, which I'm like, really, is that where we're still at? Interesting. But I get all kinds of these weird little learnings about culture that I wouldn't have access to.
Well, speaking of weird little learnings, are you familiar with the it's kind of like a game of sorts called Fuck, Marry, Kill?
I don't know Fuck, Marry, Kill, but I'm guessing you and I both like it.
So the way it works is I'm going to give you three objects. You're going to choose one to have a pleasurable evening with, metaphorically, because these are not those kinds of instruments. One that you would like forever, and one that can cease to exist by any means necessary.
Ooh,
make sense?
And then the middle one just disappears?
So, one you love, but, kind of sparingly time to time. One you want forever.
Okay.
And the other is, it will no longer be.
Okay.
So, fuck, marry, kill, fork, knife, and spoon.
Ooh. That's a hard one.
Whoa.
Oh, deep, deep there. Well, I mean, I like the spoon the best, but it's probably the one that should go.
Oh, killing her darling so early.
I mean, I really like it the best. I like the name.
Yeah.
I like the shape. I love it all. But if it was in competition with the knife and the fork, it starts to look less useful. I mean, the only thing, I mean, you can eat ice cream with a fork, but you can't eat soup with a fork.
True.
So, okay, but I'd rather have the spoon the rest of my life. So the spoon, I think, out of utilitarian value, goes away.
Okay.
I need the fork always, and
So,
the knife is
fork.
periodic. So the knife, I can still kill someone with a fork, probably. I mean, you
Going
fork them to
literal,
death.
Well, I'm a little...
Fork them to death. Yeah.
Uh...
Just fork them to death. Right in the eyeballs.
What would you say is your biggest everyday temptation?
That's funny that you should ask that now at this period in my life. A nice glass of wine with dinner that I don't do anymore. I mean, pleasure is everybody's biggest temptation, whatever it is, right? No matter what some people, swear by, if only I could sleep 15 hours a day. Wow, right? It's all about pleasure. So anything that brings me pleasure is my temptation.
Do you have a favorite industry secret or term that's only used in your line of work, or rather perhaps lines of work?
An industry secret. Well, the stupidest thing about education is it's alphabet soup. It's one of the things I just think is so silly because, well, let me back up on this one with industry. And I mean no offense to anyone listening. But when you really look at different industries, the people that go into education, I'll just include myself. They're not always the brightest. Like, they have a desire maybe to do well in the world.
Raise hands in solidarity.
Yeah, they get to control their life by having their own classroom or something. Mm-hmm. They are allowed to work up the ladder, learning as they work up the ladder skills they were never trained in. So a teacher becomes a principal. How does that work? They're fully different skills. I don't know. So, so here we have an industry that, is a little insecure, a little power tripping, a little like the low man on the totem pole kind of thing. Mm. Teachers used to be, revered, and that's gone to hell. And so what happens is this creation of alphabet soup, so that everybody that's in the know knows, and everybody not in the know. And if you're climbing the ladder, you might know some, but you might not all of your IIUSP, SAAT, CST. I mean, I could sit here and name 28 acronyms that all really do mean something, but you're speaking code to the rest of the world because we're so smart in education that we can create acronyms.
Which one's your favorite alphabet soup?
Well, the funny thing is, I started to like No Child Left Behind. I mean, that was NCLB. Do I have it right? Left Behind? Yeah. And everybody would talk NCLB. No Child Left Behind. Not a bad phrase. But then I can't remember what it is. Then you get things like perb. Well, okay. SATE. All right. That's an intervention for schools that are not, achieving. I don't know. We make them up all the time. So it's just, but I really think it's so that we look smart and cool, and we don't look smart and cool. So that's not working out for us.
All right. Lastly, before we throw it to a commercial break, if you could have the listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
I mean, I'm a disco lover. So, I'm Fresh from Kool and the Gang or Got to Be Real from Cheryl Lynn. Those are probably my go-tos all the time. But if I wanted a weird, wacky, sort of everyone in the world should hear it, it's always emotional for me. I'd go to sort of Les Mis or something like that. But I do love the song from Rent that I really think everybody should hear, except I can't come up with the name of it right now. Oh, Seasons of Love, of course. Seasons of Love. That's how I try to live my life. Seasons of Love. So disco in my personal, and then I like to get mushy with songs. I really do. I think, laughter and tears, the only tools we have. So a good mushy song is good too.
And with that, we're going to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy the Totally Real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Seasons of Love from Rent. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify. Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a bit. Do you need 100 pounds of butter? Come on down to Company Street Company.
What if I need 30 gallons of olive oil?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
But what if I just want one flatless bird roasted for a reasonable price?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
Okay, but...
Just come on down to Company Street Company. We have everything for a better price, free snacks, and employees who don't want to kill themselves, or you, because we treat them like fucking human beings. Yeah, but... Yup.
Even...
Just get your ass down to Company Street Company, where the only sketchy thing we've ever done is enable frozen orange juice hoarders. Welcome back, everybody. So, MIKALA, what is your passion that you've brought with you today?
My passion that I brought with me today?
Just, which passion you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, we could talk about my favorite thing in the world, swimming.
Yes, please.
Yes, it's my favorite. Well, we're back to water, aren't we? I mean, it's clearly a theme in my life. So I started swimming when I was really, really young, and it's funny because my dad was an amazing swimmer. He went in Iowa. I think he was a state champion or whatever, and went to nationals, and so he believes swimming saved his life. He grew up very, very poor and on the wrong side of the tracks. And so it was really clear we were all going to swim. I'm the oldest of three girls. And, he was a raging alcoholic. But, I mean, there's not a lot to laugh about that, except that it's my caricature of my dad, I guess. But, one of the ways to please him was to swim. I mean, you were swimming. And I had a big insight in the last couple of years about myself related to swimming, because the thing that he was, which was really interesting, because, again, I'm not that competitive, but I am competitive with myself. And he was always one that would write down our times, and and so you would know your time and you would then try to beat your own time. And I realized I had this big insight that beat your own time has been like the theme of my life.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to beat my own time, whether it's some sort of education thing or, something else. It's not really about how I look toward compared to others. So, I then kind of gave it up. I was a butterflyer. I was really good in high school, and then I gave it up. I kind of had this, I think everybody goes through this, oh, my parents stage. Mm-hmm. Oh, they ruined me. Which then we all come around to say, well, that's not really the story. So,
interesting you bring that up. I was out of nowhere reminded of this. So I grew up swimming. I hated it. My folks made me swim all throughout multiple times in my life because it's a good form of exercise. My mom liked water to use it as an excuse to get me to swim. She could swim, I think. And when we lived for 1 year, we lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was part of a swim team. And I didn't think I really wanted to be, or I'm not sure, but I remember distinctly we go to the swim meet. I swim a race. I do mediocre, and I get out and I'm sitting around and I'm like, I don't really want to be there. I don't hate it, but I definitely don't want to be there. And I see this other kid crying next to his mom. And I think, oh, I'm going to be nice. So I go up, assuming he's having the same problem I do. I go, hey, Chance, it's okay. I don't like swimming either. My mom makes me do it too. When he had just gotten second in the race that he tried so hard to win.
Oh, wow.
That's just this 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid who just can't conceptualize a world outside his own. So he just immediately projects and goes, oh yeah, clearly this kid
Clearly, it's
also
the
hates
same.
swimming. Yes.
Yeah.
Clearly his mom's being a jerk and making him do this. And
Yeah.
commiserate. And I remember him looking up at me like, what the?
Yeah.
Like,
You
what are you
off
talking about?
the mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that
So
selfish part that,
Did you swim competitively in junior high school, or was
yeah,
it?
yeah. I really took, this was, my dad he lost like 18 jobs. I'm not making this up in my childhood. And this guy could be employed, unemployed, drunk, sober. He was at the meet with his stopwatch, ready to roll. I mean, it was it. And so for an oldest trying to please her dad, it was it. And I didn't not like it. I didn't. But then in college and all that with this sort of like, swimming reminds me of my dad. And I think that's so funny now because so you're going to not swim, which you like, which is good for you, which clears the brain because it reminds you of your dad. I mean, it is, there's a lot of things we do that's pretty damn stupid when when you really don't go there and like think this through. So a few years back, I, started swimming again and noticed like a huge change in my life with stress and sleep and, all that. And the only way I can describe it for me, because I'm a really good swimmer, so I can be pretty lazy about it. Meaning, if you're really good, you can look great out there, but you're not really pushing it. And that's kind of how I swim. I swim to meditate and clear my brain. And so I do it 3 times a week, which is like 3 miles a week for me. But my routine now is that the brain is so busy being loud. Like the chatter we have going on in there is just like crazy, right? And so I get to the pool and I'm irritated about the world or the this or the that. And then when I get in the pool, the first couple laps, I'm mad I'm in the pool, which is dumb. So the brain is going, oh, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do a whole mile today. Can you cut it short? And then by about lap 8, you're like, I love this, remember? And then the brain, this is intentional on my part now. I say, what's the worst thing that's bugging you? What is the top of the list? So I select a topic for the brain to debate. And that's what happens. So the first part of the brain, will go, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe they treated you that way. And they were looking at, I know they were talking about me. I know, and the brain is just going for it, right? And then somehow the other side of the brain wakes up. And it's never me doing it. I'm telling you, it just happens. They have a mind of their own. And so all of a sudden, my other half of my brain will go, shut the fuck up. You, I literally will. Shut up. And I'm just swimming. Shut up. Come on. You brought that on yourself. This is, you did that. You need to just own it and move on. Own it. And so then this debate is going on mid-swim, right? Like it's just working it out. And that other side of the brain, the fuck you shut up brain, always wins when you're swimming. And so then, you end your swim in just a totally once it wins, you're in a totally different space. You're not thinking about anything. It's erased everything.
You had a reverse Michael Jordan brain.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you out there listening to this, or perhaps you haven't seen it either, Michaela, but there was this fantastic documentary called The Last Dance, which is a culmination of Michael Jordan's career, and especially the last season that he's with the Chicago Bulls. And the amount of times multiple people have made like super clips of super cuts of all the clips from The Last Dance where Michael Jordan will just say, you know, he did one thing and that's all I needed. And it's just, it's the smallest slight ever. You know, it's literally one of them's going, good game, Mike. He's like, that's all I needed. And it was just like, and then it was just to war. And he just used it to spur himself on to be the best player that's ever been in the game. Physically, mentally, I don't know about that. That sounds like a horrific way to live. And there have been other interviews I've seen where he was, for instance, apparently convinced that when he was in high school, everybody hated him when he was like the star basketball player and 6'6" and gorgeous. People were like, everybody hated me, so I had to win to show him that I was, worth something. It's like, all right, that's a terrible mental state, but my God, those results.
It worked.
Yeah. So you're doing the opposite. You're bringing up this terrible idea, and your brain's going, okay, Michael.
Yeah, right. Get a grip.
How about you take a seat back? Yeah.
Get a grip. Get some perspective, girl. This is ridiculous. Yeah, it's really funny.
What would you say your dream involvement with swimming, either now or any point in your life, would look like?
Oh, I mean, I'm like now swimming. I loved teaching swimming lessons. Like, I adored it. I was good at it. I had a little, you'll laugh at me and it sounds like me. I had would take over people's pools and I had my own business at 16. My sister was my assistant.
Story checks out.
And yeah,
the sister being the assistant.
The same Greek. And then, and she was, I gotta say, she was a good assistant. But I'd tell her where to be.
Looking back, I would have given her that recommendation.
Yeah, I would have. She helped me people didn't drown. And so I would do groups of 6 or 7 kids, and I would be, and they're 2-week lessons, and I would do 5 groups a day. Mm-hmm. And I was making bank. I mean, for a kid, and I love teaching people to swim. And so then a couple times I had the experience of teaching adults. It's so rewarding because they are so terrified. Oh my God. I mean, the fear of water, I get it. There's drownings. I understand. But it's also very relaxing. But there is no relaxation for an adult learning to swim, I will tell you. I mean, they claw at you. It's crazy. But what I thought about recently is, why am I not teaching swim lessons? I mean, it's not like I don't have enough to do. I get it. But I could see myself going back into teaching swim lessons when I retire and just do that. But the other thing that's really interesting, because I was a lifeguard, and you have to know when you're a teacher in general, what you're good at and what you're not. So every time I got assigned the lessons, and I have great strokes. So, I mean, they're beautiful. I get it. But when I had to fine tune someone's breaststroke or they're breathing wrong in freestyle, not quite the way you want to, I just suck. I mean, I don't know how to fine tune someone. I only know how to do that first step, which is, the leap of faith part where you got it. All right. You can swim 5 strokes and hold your breath if you were going to drown, but no, you cannot do a lap. It's a great feeling.
What is, for current 2023 MIKALA RAHN, what is a week of what how much swimming are you getting in a week? How is it plotted out? Is it just every morning? Do you get weekends? What is the ideal week when it comes, realistically speaking, when it comes to swimming
I started
in your life?
when I had a little lull in COVID, and when I got it back, I started at all right, don't pressure yourself, because then I pressure myself. But, if I do 3 times a week, I feel good about myself. And those are 3 miles. What I have learned about myself, which is why I have to go to a gym, but I do sign up early, is there's no consistent time in my life. I mean, this is why I have trouble with like yoga classes or, anything. I mean, as you have seen, my life could go left in a moment's notice. Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden someone's getting arrested and you're over there, or you have a proposal due and it's due at 5:00 and you're not moving from your seat till it's done. So, it's kind of like all over the place. So I love having just a simple gym membership to 24-hour fitness. And if it's 8 p.m., I'll go, but I'll make sure I put it on my calendar, because if you don't put something on your calendar, you're screwed.
Yeah. Doesn't get done.
Yeah. So wherever it works for the week is when it'll go.
What's the biggest misconception about swimming by the wider world, do you think?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, I hate to say this, but I mean it. I really mean it. Like, I don't understand why people don't understand you have to learn to swim. Like, so the first thing is, like, it is a real safety thing. Like, it's not like you have to learn to horseback ride. If you want to avoid horses the rest of your life, do it. Like,
Pretty
you
easy.
just don't like them, okay? But, like, you go to the beach, you go to pool parties. There are floods. As we've seen, like, people lived because they could swim. And so I have this real, maybe that's part of my retirement too, real campaign in my head, which is, everybody learn to swim. The other sort of, I love this, like when people say, well, I just don't float. Well, that's just not true. It's like that. No, yes, some people float better than others, but a lot of, when you get past the, I can't swim, now I can a little, and then I head towards, oh, maybe I wouldn't drown. That's all about thinking about how, is this even a word, flotatious you are. How calm you can be, buoyant you can be. And so, all of that that's actually mental. It's in some ways not physical at all. Oh, one more. Oh, those damn, oh
Go
my
for it.
God, those damn arm floaties on kids. Death traps. What are you people doing? Like, it's all over the news. My guys. You can do a life preserver, right? But, one arm pops. Guess what happens, people? Imagine it. They can't keep their head up with their one arm.
Yeah.
The floaty thing, I literally go up to people. I'm like, do you want me to teach your kid to swim right now? Because those floaties aren't working for me.
In movies and TV, how is swimming shown correctly or incorrectly?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess that's another thing I'm a little disturbed about. I think people use body doubles because, you always see this like great swimmer. They get in the water. And when I'm in the pool, I think people are embarrassed. And I don't like that at all. Like, I'll see someone that takes them like 20 minutes to do one lap, kind of dog pedaling. And I'll get to the end and go, good job. As long as we're in the pool, good. So
Yeah.
the fact that like it's kind of portrayed as kind of perfect, I don't really think that's the point of swimming. It's not the point. The point is getting in water and feeling that relaxation and that exhaustion you feel later, whether you're dog paddling or using a kickboard or who cares. So I think that there's one way to swim is just silly.
What's your favorite non-obvious aspect of swimming?
I hate being cold, but my favorite, that's interesting. one of the things I love about swimming is it works out something in your body that you didn't know you had. Like, it's such a set of muscles and things that you don't know. So, like, I never thought, like, oh, my shoulders at night when I'm sleeping are going to feel better. You know, that kind of thing. Like, wow, I never, and then it happens, and then you're like, wow, okay, that's a real benefit. I also love the fellowship around swimming. You've got, there was another gym, to not be named, that I used to go to, and people saw it, another pet peeve of mine, people saw it like a spa, you know, and you're like, no, we're all here to exercise. This is not a pool party. This is not something where you sit on the wall and chat and like we have to swim around you. This is, I don't care what it looks like. It could be jumping. I mean, people who go in and just jump the lane like the whole way, great exercise. So just another, you know, it's not a spa. People who swim like to swim so that they feel better and that they got some exercise out of it.
Moving from something that is lovely to something that is lackluster, MIKALA, what is your preposterous peeve?
It's back to water. We've had a theme here.
It's all water.
It's all about water in life. Well, it's just wasteful when people buy water bottles and then they don't drink the whole damn thing. And then it's just all over. Like, if you go to a party and watch people drink water, it's crazy. I mean, like, how many... And some people literally take a sip.
Specific activity.
I mean,
I
like,
just go to parties to watch people drink water.
They take like a sip of water and leave it and head over to go get a beer and leave that bottle of water that no one can now touch because your grimy germs, your lips were on that. You know, you didn't pour it in a cup, take a sip of it, and then, you know, but no. And we all know there's... I'm not I am in my intellect, an environmentalist, but I am not someone where I've met people that like, they just know how to compost their whole kitchen. You know, it's like, wow. Or, you know, I wash the dishes without water. Wow. How's that done? I mean, like, I'm not that creative on that, but like the whole bottled water thing has become very clear to all of us that plastics are bad and, you know, we're ruining the environment. So just like you should recycle, you shouldn't drink a quarter or half of a water bottle and walk away from it. Like, at least feed a plant. I don't know. Do something with it. Do something.
That water's so lonely.
It's just all there. I mean, you can some days, you can fill a pool with it. If you're at a big party, they're just like, whatever.
When did you first notice this becoming a problem for you? Like, when did this, like, start being like, what the hell, guys?
Well, I guess because this one has, like, a justice angle to it, right? Like, like, I'm not saying, okay, so another pet peeve. So you go to a restaurant. I was at a restaurant the other night with a friend, and we were having Japanese food. And literally, I turned to this table where this nice little couple was, you know, young couple eating. And they left 2 main dishes untouched. I swear to you. Like, one was like salmon, and it was as if they paid the bill and left. They didn't box it up. They didn't do anything. So I, you know, innocently say to the waitress, can you box those up for me so I can take them to someone? Mm-hmm. And she looks at him, and I'm like, yeah, those. And she said, oh, let me go ask my manager. And I said, but it's so wasteful. It's so sad. Like, it's terrible. And she said, I agree. Yeah. How entitled. How terrible. And then they wouldn't let me take the food. Right? So, like, 2 perfectly good dishes are sitting by. It just was wasteful. And it made me very upset. And I guess that's another form of food justice, or, like, food insecurity. like take food it justice. To the homeless yourself, people. Do something with it. But water bottles. Well, we've all been taught. They might not feel comfortable boxing up their food and taking it to a homeless person. I do it all the time. But all right, maybe that's not a comfort. A water bottle has nothing to do with comfort, people. It's a water bottle. It's not scary. You don't, you either drink the whole thing or you do something with the water. And then we've been taught to recycle that bottle. I don't know. It seems simple to me.
Do you have a story of when this peeve shown the boldest was perhaps vexsome to others around you or made a moment out of a molehill?
I think in these areas, I always kind of make a mountain out of a molehill on these. I mean, here's the funny thing I always do, which is, it's kind of passive aggressive, and I'm not very passive aggressive, so that's funny. I gather up all the water bottles. So like I make a visual of the water bottles. Like, and it's funny, the children will comment on it. Oh, what a waste. Look at that, and so I'm literally taking over a picnic bench with, and I'm not making this up. You try it at a party. At a party, you'll be like, what? I mean, like a can of Coke, it's bad for you anyway. Throw it out. But like water? So, and then I make kind of a display of it so that everybody can see how wasteful we've all been that day. And then I'll start to
Art Deco.
Yes, and then I'll start to say, kids, are there any plants that need water? I don't know.
Well, while I contain myself, we're going to head to our second half break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Michael is going to enter the lightning round. Having trouble staying awake?
Oh, yeah.
Wish you'd followed your dream so you had the give a crap necessary to meet your deadlines?
Oh, definitely.
Are you likely to be fired the second another warm body walks through that door and asks your boss for an application?
Probably.
Would you prefer to keep this shit sack of a job instead of explaining to Susan that you've been fired?
I mean, I guess.
Well then, let me introduce you to caffeine. Caffeine is a highly addictive substance that'll keep you jittery and energized to do any fucking stupid task for hours.
That sounds like drugs.
It is!
Aren't drugs illegal?
Not this one. So next time you feel like sitting on the sidewalk instead of at your desk, reach for a caffeine.
Wait, you didn't tell me where I can buy it.
'Cause it's mother-loving everywhere, you blind Neanderthal. And we're back. MIKALA, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round.
I am so ready.
All right, buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. MIKALA, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
No.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Do the dishes if it's good food.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Fran.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Ooh, tough one. Pineapple on pizza.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Amazing.
Are soups smoothies?
No.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
Ooh, both. If I had to answer, I listen to them.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Shuffle.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
No.
Are you out of touch or is it the children who are wrong?
Or those old gray-haired adults that should die. Children are never wrong.
What is more important, freedom or structure?
Freedom.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Ooh, kangaroo legs sound fun.
Would you rather be a human in a world of Muppets or a Muppet in a world of humans?
Oh, Muppet. I'd love to be a Muppet.
Would you rather meet an extraterrestrial or a ghost?
A ghost.
Are hot dogs tacos?
You gotta go hot dogs. When a good hot dog comes, you gotta eat it.
No. Are hot dogs tacos?
Oh, no way are hot dogs tacos. Come on. They're fully different genre.
Would you go to a music festival on the moon?
I don't think so. No.
Skydiving or deep sea diving?
Deep sea diving. Both don't sound good to me.
$100 million, but you die in 30 days. Do you take it?
No.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1-hour time limit?
Yes.
Congratulations, you've survived the lightning round! Woo! Now, as a reward, my gallant guest, I grant thee a lightning round question of your own to be echoed until we get bored of it. But first, we must know, I, like many listeners, we got to know, what's your favorite food that you could eat 37 of in a 1-hour time limit for $5,000?
I was on ice cream in my mind, so that was the
37
thought.
scoops?
Yeah, like just go.
All right, what's your lightning round question for me and future guests?
Okay, for you, think about Jesus. Did Jesus, did he have a temper or did he not have a temper?
So, like, the answer should be no. However, there is the whole, like, money lender table flipping
Temple problem.
fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
But, is that righteous indignation or is that a temper? So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that's just an ass whooping that, was a coming. I'm not going to say that was a...
I like that.
What about you? Do you think Jesus had a temper?
I think he's a lot more real than people make him out to. So, I mean, like, the guy in every single, like, caricature of him isn't laughing. Like, I see him as, like, a belly laugher. So, like, serious laughter. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. It's like justified anger.
Yeah.
Justified,
All right. Well, as we come to a close here, anything you want to plug, shout-outs you'd like to give, places people can find you or your content?
Well, I first of all, thanks for having me. It was fun. It's a good thing to do on a Sunday.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
And I adore working with you. I think it's great. So there you go. I work at a charter school that has needs. We're interesting. Even just kind of blows your mind if you're interested in ever coming there. So Learning Works Charter School in Pasadena and Boyle Heights, connected to Homeboy Industries. You can go to our website, or you can call Isaac or myself. Well, you'll be able to find us. And come on and have a visit and some form of life-changing experience. That's about all I got.
Awesome. Well, thank you, MIKALA, for being my guest today. And special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you, listening at home, wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry, we put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. And if you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And do remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.